Welcome, Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights. I was at the National, had a great time. I've already mentioned that. I think you've heard other people besides me talk about it. But one thing that grabbed attention from some people was my mentioning of Rich wasn't there, and I had a couple other guys, Gabe and Brad in particular, who served as my honorary wingman. And so Rich is still number one, and that kind of struck a resonant chord. So this is an episode about the aspects of being a good wingman and what I look for and what I appreciate, and just some suggestions. I think back, I've had a number of wingmen in my hobby life. I had Mark Harwell, who's passed away now, but was president of my company when I was CEO. And he was just such a driver, and he was very helpful. We did some trips. Joe Galindo, another guy that was a VP at our company that I've done a lot of my pro bono consulting is with him. And there's a division of labor in the wingman, so it's not a full partnership where two guys do the same thing, but it's one guy is looking out. They're probably mutually looking out for each other, but there's an intentionality to it. So I really have appreciated that, and I'm going to speak to that. But first, thanks sponsors: Topps, Panini, Upper Deck, Heritage Auctions, Huggins & Scott Auctions, Mike Stadium Sports Cards, Burbank Sports Cards, ComC.com, and Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication. So I already talked about Mark and Joe and Rich and Brad and Gabe, and there probably are many others, but those are ones that I have examples for today. So anyway, just 10 suggestions. One is that I really want my wingman to help me stay focused on the main thing. And City Slickers, they talked about to keep the main thing. And to me, for anybody, the main thing is to operate in their giftedness, what they're really good at, what they love, what they enjoy. And all those guys I have mentioned, they're not trying to talk me out of it. If I want to go to the dollar box, they're saying, no, you need to look in the showcases and buy some expensive cards. You need to complete some sets that you haven't completed. No, that's not my main thing anymore. But I appreciate that you have to have a wing that speaks truth, and you give them permission to encourage you to focus on the main thing. And I do that, and it's been great. Second one is just similar to that, is that you have to have somebody that's real and not trying to tell you what you want to hear. If something is not the main thing, or a distraction, or not necessarily a counterfeit, but something that's keeping you away from the main thing, they really need to call that out. It's not just focusing on the positive, it's avoiding the negative and the stuff that really isn't. And for Rich is very direct with me of, hey, you shouldn't be looking in this dollar box, or you shouldn't consider buying the whole box because it's mainly base cards. You don't need more base cards. And then sometimes I'll say, yeah, but I could put those on eBay and pull out a few, save a few, put the rest on eBay. He says, nope. And so he's really trying to help me stay true to what I say I want to do. And a good wingman is going to do that. With Mark, a couple decades ago, when I was running hard with the company, we were just going from deal to deal, and he would stay focused and not have the distraction of something. We wanted to make a deal. And with Joe, a lot of this pro bono stuff, what I've learned from him is I've seen how he does it. And again, we have a division of labor, but he's helped me to really hear the other person and hear they're really listening to hear the message, what they're saying, as well as what's the meaning behind it. These first two are allowing this wingman to speak into your life toward the positive and away from the negative. Third is just the recognition that, especially at a card show, and I'm kind of make this more of a sports card insights, is that not in a long time have I been speaking using bad language. But it's not just avoiding bad language, it's clean language, encouraging language. For example, at a show, if I'm there and Rich and I are talking, you have no idea whether you're being observed or recorded. There's drones taking pictures. And if somebody's listening or walking by, I hear things. And if I hear sarcasm, if you hear sarcasm out of context, it doesn't sound too good. And Rich is pretty good about this. I'm pretty good about this, but you just don't want to go down that path. The wingman is going to encourage you to be not just avoiding bad or destructive language, but encouraging you toward positives. There are things we'll see at a show we don't like, but if we're talking about it in the middle of a crowded aisle, like I said, that's true of anybody. They'll call me on it. Again, I'm not doing horrible things, but just even the sarcasm can get back and be taken out of context. Fourthly, I'm not very good at this, but Rich and Brad was very helpful, is that as I was going through the national, especially at the national and some of these shows here, I probably incorrectly regard them as an endurance test. And so I'm camped out, I'm locked in, and Rich is good about this. And Brad especially said, you know what? you need to break for lunch. I said, well, I'm not going to break for lunch. So I will bring you a hamburger. He was serving, again, the whole idea of a wingman and the mutuality is serving and considering the other person. So I did not want to take a full break, but Rich, he'll come up occasionally. We'll just chat about something. So I'll maybe not come to a standstill, but I'll slow way down. I probably need that. I don't think I need it, but as I said, a wingman, they probably do what you want as well, but mainly the more effective one is doing what you need. The other tip is if somebody comes up to me and says, hey, you need to stop, I'm going to say, no, I don't. But if they say, you need to slow down, then I'll say, well, why do you say that? You're sweating, or you've been in the same place for several hours. You need to get up and walk around or do something. And so just slowing down is probably good. And I probably did not have people saying that to me, at least not in a forceful enough way, before I had my heart attack, which now is it'll be 28 years in October. Again, when your friends tell you to slow down, whether it's a wingman or not, and when Brad got me a burger, I didn't say, what's this cheese doing on there? I said, thank you. Actually, I wanted a cheeseburger. And the French fries were great. So it was a guilty pleasure of a meal. And now I realize he probably waited in line for a long time. So again, very appreciative of that. Next is just the way we treat people generationally. One of the reasons I do so many tributes, and I've done a bunch of them with Rich, is that there are people in many cases older than me who are worthy of respect. At the same time, John Newman, who is a popular podcaster, is very strong on treating kids with respect and not saying, hey, kid, get out of here, bring your parent. So the way we treat our elders is the way we'll be treated in many cases. If you don't respect your parents, your kids won't respect you at any rate. So I think there is a generational transfer. It's part of the 10Xing of the hobby. It can't be just 10Xing by 2030. It needs to be an enduring 10Xing. And that means keep being inclusive with the older generation as well as bringing in the newer generation. That means treating them with honor and respect. And number 6, I've been wronged. Rich has been wronged. Everybody I've talked about has been wronged, but you can't, if they've done something bad to you, to get them back is not helpful. Not that Rich has to talk me off the ledge or vice versa or anybody else, but it's just not helpful. What happens in our culture is when somebody makes a mistake, people immediately think, I know that person, that wasn't just a mistake, that was a lie. And in fact, it's part of a conspiracy. In fact, it was premeditated. All those things are speculation. And even if they're true, you usually don't know that. And given somebody the benefit of the doubt, in many cases, it just is a simple mistake, or it's a bad outcome on an innocent mistake, and then something unraveled with a deal. So don't assume the worst and don't attack somebody. Just certain people do things that rub you the wrong way, and the wingman can help you keep it in perspective. They weren't trying to offend you. Maybe they were being sarcastic. So it's just another safeguard. Again, Rich doesn't have a big problem with that. He's a very positive guy. I don't most of the time, but my buddy Joe, generally, when he is wronged by somebody, I can see the other side. When I'm wronged, he can see the other side as well, that I need to take it with a grain of salt. Number 7 is just doing what you say, saying what you mean, being true to your word, to be faithful. I've always tried to live up to my agreements in writing as well as verbal. It's just a good way to live your life. And I've had different kind of business relationship, partnerships, deals, contracts, employees, bosses. The only way to do it is to tell the truth and be faithful and treat them the way you do. So if Rich saw me doing something that would be unfaithful, he would say, hey, what's going on? I said, it hadn't happened, but if it would, I know he'd call me out on it. And so I never liked yes men. There was a misconception in our company that to get ahead, you had to agree with me. No, actually, to get ahead, you had to eventually agree. But if you initially disagreed and had good arguments, I totally respected. That was really, somebody would stand up and say, hey, wait a minute, before we make this decision, what about this? Instead of saying, hey, if you're the boss, you want to do that, let's go for it. So I enjoyed it when people were disagreeing with me respectfully and substantively, and not just a feeling, but something they could back up. Number 8 is just being honest, and probably being honest in small things. I've never really stolen cards, but if I had one time at a show a few years ago that I pulled out some cards and I forgot to pay for them. Again, they could say, well, what a crook. No, I don't think they even knew it, but I went back the next day and said, hey, I forgot to pay for these. It wasn't very much money, but even in small things. And like I said, maybe nobody was noticing, and it doesn't matter if anybody was noticing. but I didn't even have to ask Rich or anybody else, hey, what should I do? My own conscience. My mom, if I ever did anything dishonest or not stealing, but just misappropriating something, my mom always found out. And I don't know if she had drone cameras 60, 70 years ago, but somehow she found out. So just do the right thing and have a wingman that's going to be encouraging you to do that and does it, because then you do have a conspiracy. You do have a conspiracy. Conspiracies are not good. I think being truthful in what you say, being honest is, like I said, there's a big deal about transparency in the hobby. And I really believe there's levels of transparency. I don't know every detail about Rich or Joe or Mark or anybody, but I know enough to be a good friend. And if I see something or if he sees something in me, he can say it and not worry that they're not your wingman if they're afraid of losing their non-paying job. But Rich is just going to speak truth. He wants the best for me, and I would do the same thing for him. I've confronted him on some things and vice versa, and it's with the spirit of just reassuring that I have confidence in you, but are you sure you want to do this? Lastly, and this is a killer, if you had this, I don't think it happened in my company very much, but don't be envious or jealous. Rich has had some pickups in the dollar box where he got there before I got there, and he showed me what I got, and I thought, I wish I'd have pulled that. Same thing with Gabe. Gabe famously pulled out something that I did not see. So am I mad at them? Am I jealous? Am I envious? No, I'm happy for their success. I'm not going to get even with them, but you better believe I'm going to get better. I'm going to learn from that. So in a good wingman situation, you're also learning from each other and not envious of the other person's success. Because if they're a wingman, they're going to be doing some of the same things you're doing. Rich would not be able to be helpful to me. And Gabe, who I was working the same dollar boxes on Saturday and Sunday at the National, and we'd been associates. He'd worked at the company. In fact, he came as an intern. And so we're not equals in the sense that I used to be his boss, but he wants to be helpful to me. I want to be helpful to him, but I can learn from him. And maybe he's learned from me too, but that doesn't happen if I'm guarded or jealous or concerned. And so you really can't be a wingman unless you want the best for the other person. And really been blessed of the guys I've mentioned to have, they're beyond a wingman. They're just a friend that wants to help me and I want to help them too. So at any rate, wingman's an interesting concept. I think it comes from the Air Force with the Maverick and Top Gun and all that stuff, but it's a cool concept to go through. Even if you had more than one wingman, people out there, they're looking out for you. Yeah. Thanks, Rich, Gabe, Brad, Joe, Mark, and many others. So that's it for today. I'll be talking about this next year perhaps too. So thanks again.
The man in the house of cards.